I remember getting some incredible advice from an adoptive mother. She had, I think, 4 or 5 biological children, and she'd also adopted 5 or 6 children, some domestically, some foreign. And I remember her saying, just watch for opportunities to physically connect with your child, obviously emotionally and everything else, but she said actual touching. And she said because some of her children did not want to be touched at all. And I found that with my children. Some are huggers and snugglers, and some aren't, and my little Mia. So I just found times if they don't really even like to be touched, you can just wrap a blanket sometimes and then hold them. And she is very much like that to this day. She just actually went through an open heart surgery 6 weeks ago. It's a follow-up from a heart problem in Bulgaria. And when she is sick and or tired or something, I know those are the moments that I can keep reinforcing that bond and hugging and touching. When she's healthy and happy and everything, you know, she'll run off to school without even saying goodbye, and I have to go grab her and, you know, bring her back. But it's okay. And I think as parents, we have to watch for those moments that we can do it. But on the flip side, be okay if that's not what they need and they don't want to be touched every minute, that we have to not worry so much about our neediness, because a lot of us adoptive parents, we're needy. We've waited long and we want to just be hugging and holding every minute. And so maybe let them have space and take yourself out of the equation, but definitely looking for every moment that you can keep solidifying that mother-child relationship.
Yeah, I think I did look for every opportunity to attach, and I did kind of just view it as how much attention would you be giving them if they were babies? Mm-hmm. And start from there. And so even though my girls were 11 and 9, I was with them when they brushed their teeth. I was with them when they got changed in the morning. I fell asleep with them multiple times. We did actually homeschool for a while, and I was liberal in my interpretation of that. I mean, at this point, anything you expose them to we did math and we did do reading, but if I would also watch YouTube videos about whales and Thomas Edison and Helen Keller. Like, I kept thinking, what does every 9-year-old in this country know? And every 9-year-old knows who Helen Keller is. So, reading a story about Helen Keller or watching a cartoon video so we homeschooled. We also had to teach to swim and teach to ride a bike, and I wanted them to just even learn an instrument. And I just thought, as long as it's positive, we can do as much as we want. I was with them 24/7, and for the first 4.5 months of their life. And I felt that was it. I did burn out. Yeah. At the end of that, at the end of the 4.5 months, we had to do something, and things had to change, and bedtime ritual didn't take an hour anymore. I remember the first time I'm like, we're not reading stories for 45 minutes. I'm just going to kiss you tonight and you're going to go to sleep. And they just could not believe that was going to happen. And it felt very freeing. So I'm not going to lie. But I still miss that. And just to be, in total full disclosure, I didn't get it with my 14-year-old boy because we had the 2 girls and they were so needy. And my 14-year-old bonded with my son, which was great. And I don't know if it's because he's a boy or because he was older or because I didn't get that story time with him, but I'm still trying. It's been 1 year, and I'm still looking to do what you did when I have an opportunity to touch him or look in his eyes and ask him a question, and he can figure out how to answer every question in 3 words or less. So it's very, very difficult, and I'm still working on it. And I think that's normal too. It's only been a year and he's older.
I think with Sophia, similar, she did not want to be touched when she came home, and so long nighttime ritual, right? That was part of the investment we needed to make in her comfort level with being able to feel safe here, similar to what Amy had said. She had been adopted by another family, and then they disrupted, and after a year, so she'd had a lot of change and a lot of things happen for her. So I try to find little things like when I'm trying to help her learn how to relax, because she's very energetic, go. So we'll practice taking deep breaths, and she loves to have this sort of touch on her arm, right? So there's little things that you try to do just to get a little bit more exposure in, like you were saying. Maybe while you're doing their hair, you just try to take a little bit longer, and so that they're getting that used to good touches from adults, right? That's not necessarily something that they've ever been exposed to. It's something definitely need to watch out for. And I agree with you. The way both children have had different processes, and you're constantly adjusting to try to figure out how to make things more solidified for them as they grow and as change, and you change too. So.
Right. For my son, luckily for me, he's always been a snuggler. He just loves to snuggle, and I think that might have been that first experience that we had together, where he just laid his head on my chest, and even now his comfort is to have his hand on my heart so he can feel the heartbeat. But I think with your son, it's your hair that is comforting to him. But I think you're right. You just have to look for those cues that are specific to your own child, that make them feel better. Everybody wants to feel comforted. Everybody wants to know that there's a parent that they can trust, even at 14 when they won't meet your eyes and they're going to answer all the questions in 3 words or less. But they still need that, even though they may not understand that they need that. It's
and
still
they may fight
in
it.
there, right? And so I think it's important that you look for those opportunities, and that you persevere. You don't give up because he seems like he doesn't want it, or that everybody needs it.
I agree. I think you hit on a really important point right there, that sometimes happens with kids, especially if you're borderline like attachment disorder issues or things like that. They're going to act like they don't need it because they're afraid you're going to leave.
Well, it's a vulnerable thing for
It
them,
makes
right?
them vulnerable.
If they need you, then
and you just have to keep showing them that you're there. And it's hard. I mean, you don't think of that you don't think as a parent, when I'm going into it as a naive, 25-year-old, when I had my first child, I'm not thinking that my child might make me insecure because I might think they don't like me.
Right.
That is real. And
It is.
I think it happens with your adopted kids, especially because if you haven't had a chance to bond with them as infants, and then they start going through their teen years, and my biological son was just like my adopted son. But I had all those 0 to 10. Well, I know he let me kiss his boo-boos when he was little.
Right.
It was still hard for me to have him pull away. And so this 14-year-old boy who I love to pieces, he's keeping his distance, and it hurts a little. And I have to keep showing him in any way that I can, whether it's driving him to soccer practice and asking him how the game is, even though I know he's going to say fine, and just
Right.
keep talking.
Keep trying.
It's hard for me to keep talking when he never responds.
Right.
Yeah.
It hurts. I'm like, just talk to me.
Yeah.
Well, and I think
hard.
too, they're pushing boundaries. I remember an experience that you told me that Nathan had, that Colin had a little bit later, where he would ask you, "Do you still love me when I'm mad? Do you still love me when I'm sad?" And I mean, those are real concerns that that you're going to say no. And so I think you just have to keep trying. And even though I can imagine it hurts a lot, I can't, but I think you like you said, you just have to keep trying, keep looking for those opportunities, because he does need it. I think he really, really needs it.
I keep hoping someday he'll.
I'll bet he
But
will.
you have to be there.
Yeah.
And I have to force myself, because I want to not say anything sometimes. I know I need to attach. I know he needs to attach. But I know if I say, "Hey, how was your day? What happened at school?" Same.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
you run out
good
of
talk.
ideas.
And it hurts a little every time.
Yeah.
And I know he doesn't mean to, but I know that it's important to keep trying. And I know that everybody needs to be loved. Everybody needs to be loved.
Well, and I think I had such a good experience to feel maybe a little bit what a child feels like, because our third boy we adopted eventually, but he came to us as a foster baby, and he was another one that, he was 2 days old. It was a couple days before Christmas. Here you're bringing me the Christ child. I mean, it's Chris. I mean, I fell in love with that baby, but it was 10 months before we knew if we were going to keep him or not. And I didn't consciously do this, but I realized later I was trying so hard not to let myself fall in love with him. When I would put him down a bit, I would cuddle him and everything, but normally I'd go back in and stare at my kids while they're asleep and, just to soak that in. And I didn't dare do that because I was so terrified of loving him more than I could deal with and then losing him. And it was later I thought, that's just what kids feel like, especially if they've been through any kind of disruption, or at the orphanage, somebody coming in maybe that they love, or a child, and then they're gone, and now I saw it as an adult, that fear that kind of blocks you, and I thought, I would never do that. But I saw that in myself of trying to kind of hold back a little bit because of the terror of losing him. And we had fostered a baby before that did go back to a terrible environment. And so luckily with our Marcus, we got to adopt him, and I poured my love into that child. And he's a little hellion, but it's great to have had that there. But just to realize they have a reason for taking their time and letting down their walls to love you. And some of them will be snugglers from the minute. And, depending on their experience, that may take a lot of time.
When our social worker came to do a follow-up home study just here recently, he said, "Now, how long has she been home?" And he was taking his notes, and he made the comment, "Wow, so she still hasn't been with you longer than she's been through so many transitions." And it kind of hit me, right, that it feels normal for me, but I can see in her sometimes that she's still waiting for the other. She tries to push and see what's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And when you remember in the orphanage situation, they have caretakers, right, that change on shift, right? Who do you get attached to? And every few hours it's a different person, and they come and go as jobs change or whatever. Or we found out after our children came home that the babies they had a 3-year-old that was assigned to take care of that child, right? So what kind of adult bond have they ever had, right? That it just remembering where they come from and the language that they speak emotionally because of what they've been through, I think is critical.